Hey everybody, welcome back to LegalSpeak. I'm the Lawnmowers, and this is the short video essay series in which I talk about the games I'm playing and my thoughts on the video game industry as a whole. Today we're going to be talking about Owlboy, but before we get started, make sure to check out our website, coldnorthpro.com, for everything we do all in one place. Also, don't forget to check out our podcast, HardReset, on iTunes, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. This week we discussed dormant franchises and if they should get a sequel, reboot, or just be left to die. Links will be in the description down below. And I'll be starting a streaming series in which I suffer through the hardest difficulty of Ghost Recon Wildlands soon, so stay tuned. Indie games are about a dime a dozen these days, and many people, including myself, would make the argument that the golden age of the indies has come and gone. Now that's not to say there aren't any good indie games still being made today, just that with market saturation has come a stark decline in the average quality of the games that can be considered indie. That being said, we still occasionally get an indie game that exceeds even our wildest expectations. Super Meat Boy, Stardew Valley, Celeste, and now, in my opinion, the king of the indies has come to consoles, and it's called Owlboy. Owlboy surprises in every way imaginable. Stellar gameplay, storytelling, music, and art make it a game that is at home amongst the other greats of this generation, and could easily be mistaken for an all-time great of the 16-bit era. Despite its lengthy stay in development hell, Owlboy emerged as a coherent, enthralling experience that had me enamored throughout 2 full playthroughs. Like all good things, pixel art has been done to death, and in a way has normalized to a point that what used to stand out as excellent is now seen as just okay. In an age drowning in pixel art, D-Pad Studio justifies the art style by setting a new gold standard in the visuals. The characters are able to be extremely expressive, allowing for unprecedented levels of emotional connection in a game of this style. Objects are shaded, giving the world a sense of depth and weight that contributes to the combat and gameplay in an essential way. While the art may harken back to a bygone era, the music takes a different approach entirely. With 16-bit visuals and sound effects, I was expecting music to match, and while sometimes the music is representative of more electronic MIDI-like soundtracks, the majority of the score is the complete opposite. Hearing the music perfectly crescendo as more and more instruments join in as Otis leaves Veli for the first time and flies into the Tropos, enhanced what could have been a fairly unremarkable moment and made it larger than life. Musical cues elevate several moments in the game to communicate a sense of grandeur, ambition, sorrow, or intensity as the lovable cast progresses throughout their adventure. The feeling of having just finished a truly grand adventure is an extremely difficult one to capture. The feeling of peace after a quest of epic proportions has been completed is one that developers are constantly in pursuit of, and only few are able to achieve. Owlboy gives the player that sense of being on and completing a journey that is truly world-altering, and what elevates the game to that level is beyond a shadow of a doubt Jonathan Greer's score. While many have described the game as a Metroidvania, I am forced to disagree. I am of the opinion that people call Owlboy a Metroidvania because they are eager to fit it into a category. While I don't feel the need to force the game into a specific genre, and it definitely has some Metroidvania-like elements to it, if I had to call it something, I would say Owlboy is much more of an action puzzle game than it is a Metroidvania. The game almost never forces the player to stop, turn around, and go back the way they came, because they need to revisit an old area with new abilities. While it does end up crossing paths with itself quite often, the game is much more linear than other Metroidvanias, and doesn't lean on the exploration elements that I feel define the Metroidvania genre. Combat is interesting, puzzles are tricky, and platforming sections are intense. It may not fit into any one specific genre, but Owlboy delivers on excellent gameplay with compelling mechanics. Storytelling in video games has come a long way since the days of princesses being in other castles, but in recent years, many games have attempted to be deep or impactful but missed the mark because they were too heavy-handed in preaching their message. This was my biggest criticism of Owlboy until the very end, when the developers revealed they had pulled the wool over my eyes and there was a much larger and more important message behind the story. Without going into too much detail, certain aspects of character interactions felt forced and to a degree almost preachy, like the writers were pandering to the audience. But I was delightfully surprised to discover upon reaching the end of the game that the writing was nuanced and well balanced. Owlboy stunned me in a way few games ever do. I felt invested in the world D-Pad Studio created and compelled to keep going. From start to finish, the game is an absolute joy with an incredibly powerful message of friendship and perspective. While I don't use the word loosely, I feel it's safe to say Owlboy is plain and simple a masterpiece.